Hello friends, and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick, and today we're going to be checking out Unep by Ian Snyder. This is more of an experience than a game. I think this is one of those cases where we're going to be looking at something a little bit more introspective and a little bit more experimental, and probably doesn't quite hold to the same classification as the majority of the games that we play on this channel, so hopefully nobody minds too much. I also want to put out that this is probably a little bit one of those seizure type warning games that I want to mention ahead of the time. It could be some flashing lights and colors and such, so if that bothers you, or if you have any history of epilepsy, you might not want to watch this one. At least that's what I can tell from the little bit that I have tinkered with this one, and that is not much at all. So what we are presented with here is an options screen, or a main title screen UI, that is very, very experimental, I have to say. It reminds me a little bit of something like Loco Roco meets maybe Electroplankton on the Nintendo DS, and maybe a little bit of Flow also as well, although that's a little bit of a stretch, I would say. So we'll mouse over some things here and watch as all of these shapes transform and start to knock each other around a bit. When they're sitting by themselves and trying to reach some sort of harmony, I think this is actually a pretty interesting sort of a metaphor for music. We've got all these notes that are bouncing off each other, resonating in their own ways, and they can't ever quite sit still. They're always pushing each other away from each other, so I guess might as well also take that to the extreme and look at like human biology. You could also make some comparisons there. So, hey, we're all connected. So the colorful circles or shapes, whatever you want to call them, those are just there for effect, but then the outline ones are actually the ones that actually act as menu items. So we've got one called Cycle, one called Form, one called Options, because that is our options menu, and actually not a whole lot to see in that one. Multiplayer mode on and off, volume, and resume. I'm not sure what multiplayer mode is, but that sounds kind of interesting and mysterious, especially since this isn't so much of a game, so I wonder how you collaborate in this. Veil, Felt, and Verse. So I find it very interesting that the developer would choose to create a menu that actually actively moves itself around in such a way that you could actually have kind of a difficult time selecting the option you want. Now, I'm not saying that like it's a detrimental thing or even trying to use that in a negative way. I just think it's an interesting observation, and it's not something I've seen done a whole lot, and it makes you wonder, maybe that's to encourage experimentation, to leave you feeling a little bit more disoriented, or, I don't know, maybe some other feeling like that. So there is a little bit of like a psychology game that might go into UI design and something like this. So let's open up Verse and have a look around. I'm not sure how much there is actually to see in this, but we're already presented with something pretty freaking beautiful. Reminds me of synapses firing little electric bolts as music is created. And of course, that is the main emphasis here, and I am a big jerk, and I'm going to go ahead and talk over most of the music. But I am going to encourage you guys to all go ahead and check this out for yourselves. It is a totally free browser-based experience, but you can also download a full-screen version of this, which is something that I think would be a sight to behold. So if you're watching, the cursor is actually directing the flow of these, what I'm calling like a little electric bolts, and the faster I move, the more kinetic and dynamic the motion becomes. And if you try to isolate the motion in one area, I'm trying to see if that will change anything. No, it seems like you're just moving along with these little highways of light. And where they connect, I'm not sure if there's any rhyme or reason to it. It seems like it might be being generated on the fly. Of course, it is also creating a chime-like mechanism that's happening as we move around. And if we stay still for a long time, everything starts to calm down and chill out a little bit. And then if I move just a little bit, oh, we actually have a change in key. Oh, look at that. So you could actually use this as a bit of like a synthesizer music tool for the musically inclined out there. I think that would probably be entirely possible. And it's quite a beautiful visualizer to go along with the musicality as well, so a little bit in both departments. So we're only going to visit each of these options, or each one of these menu items, for just a few moments to take a look at what they have to offer, and then we will move on. So let us jump back to the menu and select a different one. I've already forgotten which one that was that we were just looking at, so we might end up with a couple duplicates here. Veil. Alright, this is Veil. And Veil looks a bit like a kaleidoscope, or maybe... I thought maybe I saw fractals happening for a second, but I think probably more kaleidoscope than anything. So let's try clicking here. Alright, so clicking makes everything really come to life. Extremely vivid neon colors. And if I start moving, it looks like I'm actually able to sort of swirl these colors around into different patterns. And after I reach a certain level of swirling, then we have the music that actually kicks in a little bit in the background. This is definitely very hypnotizing and quite easy to get transfixed on as you're staring into it. The colors are extremely bold, and there's actually some really beautiful color combinations that are happening using various different color wheel configurations that I think are definitely ones that are chosen to impress. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot here that's just put up to random chance. I have a feeling most of this is well designed. And what if I try to move in the other direction? What happens then? Yep, I can actually... Seems like I can slow down the velocity, and then I can actually turn everything in the other direction. And that actually tends to produce a different sound effect. And then as soon as I let go, everything slows down. Well, at least sound-wise it does. Speed-wise, not so much. Alright, so let's go back out to the menu again. That was Veil. What was the other one we saw? Probably Cycle, right? Because that's the darker one. Form. Alright, let's have a look at Form. Alright, so we've got a bit of a shape here. A little bit of a curious shape, in fact. This reminds me now of windowsill. And we can spin this thing around, and it looks like each face is going to have a sound associated with it. And I'm guessing the speed with which I click through these is going to resonate and reverberate for a few moments. And then it actually settles down and stops. So we can actually use this to create a beat of sorts. It actually has a bit of a feeling like maybe there's a chime or something that's going off on its own time. And a few of these sounds definitely seem to be pretty dissonant. Well recorded though, and they sound lovely. We've got all the faces of this shape all going off at their own times now, so this is definitely not going to be the most attractive sound that comes from it. Still, pretty interesting looking thing at least. Alright, let's go back out to the menu again. Verse? Have we done verse? I don't remember which one we started with. It was either verse or cycle. So we'll find out. If it wasn't this one, then we'll go to cycle. Yeah, it was. Verse and options and form and felt. I think felt's the only one we haven't done yet other than that one. Oh, look at this. What do we have here? Oh, I can actually draw things sort of like an Etch-a-Sketch. Oh, and it goes ahead and completes the drawing, and every time it moves over that timeline, it's actually going to play a note. And I wonder how it's figuring out when it should move and in what way to continue the drawing. Oh, this is really interesting. All by itself, this is probably one of the most interesting ones so far. Okay, it looks like it might just be mapping the drawings into transforming them on some axis. That is really interesting. I love this. Oh yeah, that is what it's doing. It's sort of deforming the pattern that I draw each time into its own thing. It sort of reminds me of like a phantom, like a ghost child drawing in chalk on a blackboard or something. And the kind of janky piano sounds, well, maybe janky's not the right word, but they're sort of forlorn, melancholy sounds. Definitely tend to put this into a bit of an atmospheric experience in a way that I wouldn't have necessarily expected. This is definitely my favorite one so far of these visualizers that I've seen. What if I make a triangle? How's it going to adapt that? Oh, and then you can see the drawings almost start to make new drawings out of each other when they start to intersect. And then after a while they fade away. What if I do really tight scribbles? Where are we going to go with that? I really like how it gives your drawing a mind of its own in such a simple way. What if I draw something over here? Just a little box. Is it just going to keep drawing boxes and move along? Oh, I guess I found a spot where it actually will draw itself infinitely into a pattern. perhaps. Draw a circle. It's a pretty poor circle, yes, but... Oh, looks like it's finding the average when it's out there. Although, no, there is that little imperfection that's coming across. Sorry, I probably shouldn't spend so much time on this one, but I find this really interesting. So let's move back out. And which one haven't I seen now? Was it felt? Form? I have such a bad memory. Veil. What was felt? Oh. Ooh, this is pretty as well. Alright, I clicked and I held, and it seems to just be drawing an arbitrary pattern based on where I started that click. And it is also producing a tone on each movement. Oh, I really like these contour lines that it's created. Trying to figure out if there's a pattern to where it is that I click and what sort of note is produced, whether it's based on height or, you know, positioning along the X or Y axis. Sort of reminds me a little bit of the synth sounds from the beginning of SimCity on the SNES. That one I'm not a fan. It sounds a little bit like a car horn. Oh, that's really pretty. Almost looks a little bit like time-lapse photography of cars moving along cityscapes. And then when they all dissolve at the same time, also very pretty as well. And you can see the music just flow away with them. That is really cool. Well, at the risk of ending too soon, I think I should probably leave the rest up to you guys. So I will go back out to the main menu, and that will be another episode of Indie Impressions, guys. Thanks very much for watching and hanging out with me. And of course, you should go ahead and try this yourself, see what creations you can make from it, try and make some music or something. I think it could be a lot of exciting stuff that could come from this. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear anything about your opinions on this. Of course, if you have any support for the show, I'd love it if you'd leave that as well, if you're still enjoying what I'm doing. Or if you just want to leave a like to help new people find the series, that is also really nice of you to do. Of course, no obligation, just if you think I deserve it. And of course, check out the description for the link to the game itself and all of my social media links, including indie-impressions.com, which is my site, which I've filled up with nearly 550 episodes of this series, all different videos, all different genres of games, so hopefully there's something over there for everybody. But that is going to do it for another episode, guys. Thank you again for hanging out. Hope to see you again real soon. New episodes are every single day, so I will see you back here tomorrow, and I hope you have a lovely night, guys. Later!